Okay, so welcome everyone to our study of the 12 principles of the 12 steps. What our intention is to have a monthly meeting and go over the 12 principles that are lined up with the steps. And as our flyer says, again, thanks for joining us as we explore what it means to practice these principles in all our affairs. And how can these principles help us to live a more sane and sober life? Um, so the first principle, which we're going to look at today, is honesty and how it lines up with step one. Again, we haven't done this before, so it's kind of new for all of us. And I want to start out by reading a little bit about honesty. And the material I'm reading from right now comes from a AA member, Ray A, who got sober in 1984. And his story was written in the Grapevine in the October 2009 edition, and it was titled "Rebel Without a Cause." And I'm just saying all that to identify where some of this material comes from. And he wrote a book called "Practice These Principles dash the book." That's the name of the book he wrote. So it's not AA approved literature any more than Drop the Rock or New Pair of Glasses. But he shared some of his insights and experiences with the principle slash virtue of honesty. So I'll start. These are some excerpts from his book. In AA, honesty begins with our admission of powerlessness and unmanageability. In step one, until then, we have lived in denial. We have been totally incapable of facing up to the truth about ourselves that we are alcoholic and cannot drink like other people. It's a truth we have to hold on to for the rest of our lives. If we don't, we are certain to drink again. And why not? If that's not the truth, if we are not alcoholic, why shouldn't we drink? Then he goes on to say, as a purely practical principle, then, honesty is the foundational to recovery. The big book is forceful about this. And I can go more later. So I thought how we might start this before asking Claudia and Marty to share some is we say honesty is one of the principles that we want to put into practice in every aspect of our life always. But what do we mean when we say honesty? What does the word actually mean? And I know from talking to some other people and just reflecting on it, I different people have different definitions, and it's not surprising that there can be some definitions that everyone can agree on. It doesn't mean they're the only ones, but one, honesty can be adherence to the facts, and the implication of that is if we're adhering to the facts, then it's a refusal to lie, steal, deceive in any way, particularly to deceive ourselves. And looking further, honesty does not only apply to what we say. Honesty can be looked at as consistency too, which means there's nothing that one says that contradicts what one thinks or does. No thought opposes any other thought. No act belies what we say, and no words lack agreement with another. We're honest in every aspect. Those can be And honesty also can be looked at as freedom from deceit or fraud. So it's a little bit more than I told the lady at Safeway that she gave me too much change. Um, or I didn't lie to this person this time. Honesty could be much more than that. And there's a lot of examples in our book that talk about the necessity of being honest if we want to recover. Um, I can say this without fear of contradiction that I cannot drink and not be honest and consider myself an honest person. So I've been told by a sponsor before that welcome to alcoholism. So before this meeting started, just 20 minutes ago, Cindy and I were talking about um, um, can one totally disagree with, for example, a political party, a government agency, whatever you want to say? Can we totally disagree with it and not be upset? If we're honest, in our book, it tells us we know what God's will is, according to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's to be happy, joyous, and free. And if that's what we want, honestly, and a situation is going on, whether in our country, our government, or a neighborhood, or even our household, can we totally disagree with it and not be upset? If we're honest, I got to see in myself just today that I feel righteous to be honest, and yet another law that's talked about in our 12 and 12 is if I'm upset for any reason, there's something the matter with my thinking. And am I can I be honest enough to look at whatever the error is in my thinking, um, and be able to be at peace and not agree with whatever it is I don't agree with. So I'll stop talking now because I just want to get kind of an introduction into what we're doing and um and see what we have to say. So Claudia, can I start with you?
Sure. Um, am I talking about 10 minutes? I just
Sure,
want to, okay.
sure.
Um, I'm Claudia. I'm an alcoholic.
Welcome and thank you for being here and helping us out.
This is a really, really interesting topic, and you use that word implication. Um, I it's like when it says the first step is to do perfectly. With purpose, with absolute perfect honesty, I came out of a blackout on a Sunday morning on my living room floor and I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm an alcoholic. I I cannot drink successfully. And I'm constantly fighting the consequences of that. Uh, and I went to my first meeting that day and I admitted I was alcoholic and powerless over alcohol. And my life was unmanageable. Um, and was also able to admit, like it says in the first sentence of the first step in the 12 and 12, I was willing to admit defeat. I will give change back if I get too much change. I've gone back into a store because I've forgotten to put something on the conveyor belt that was still at the bottom of the grocery cart. That kind of honesty, I have no problems with. Um, Sometimes I have problems with this idea of honesty, where you make a comment, where somebody makes a comment, I'll keep it general, and said, if you're really working this program, if you're really being honest, if you've really surrendered yourself to a spirit, you have to be able to achieve this. And I have to be honest and say, I have 34 years of sobriety and I get disturbed. And things happen where I would love to be able to say, honestly, when there's something wrong, I'm the problem, I'm disturbed. And, but I don't want to tell you that. Probably my hardest thing about honesty is admitting something that is going on with me that's inconsistent with the way I want you to see me, and afraid of judgment. So it's like sitting on the couch and having somebody come up, and I'm upset about something. Marty comes up to me and I'm upset about something and I don't want to talk about it. And he'll say, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine, and no, I'm not. And I'm not being honest about that, but I'm not ready to talk about whatever it is. Or maybe it's something I want to talk about it, but I've already talked about it 4,000 times and I know he doesn't want to hear about it. So I have to wait to talk about it with someone who I can talk about it. So I look at the implications of absolute honesty. The old comment of the woman going up to her husband and saying, does this dress make me look fat? And he might look at her and say, boy, is that a loaded question? And say, you look lovely. The implication is to make the other person feel bad. They don't want to leave. And is that by saying that someone looks wonderful when you're not really sure they look that wonderful? So to me, the concept of honesty is I have to be careful when I'm holding on to something and I honestly don't want to let go of it. And I have to be able to say, I honestly don't want to let go of that yet. And so I can honestly say that I honestly don't always say what I'm thinking, because I look at who, I hate to use this word, my audience is. Am I talking to my sponsor or am I talking in a general way at a group level? Um, am I, if do I know that if I'm honest with someone and I want to tell them how I feel about something, and I know it's going to make them feel bad, or I know it's going to affect it could affect our relationship, I might not say that. I may have to go talk to someone else about it. So I'm going to say I hopefully live a life of consistency, of honesty with the people who are close to me, and about those things that are important. And that honestly, I do live a life of conditional honesty. No, I'm not going to walk around and lie, but sometimes it's not appropriate. Sometimes if sometimes I just have to not say what I'm thinking. I have a different concept of spirituality that many other people don't have, or they have and they don't talk about it. And there was a time where I talked about things in a way that I was hoping that other people would appreciate what I had with respect to that. And today I have to judge my audience. I go to a meeting that's very God oriented, and I get real uncomfortable sometimes. And somebody will call on me, and I won't say what it is I want to say because I don't feel it's the appropriate place. Some people know how I feel. So I may talk about the topic in a very general way, even though if I were to be honest, in a very broad sense of the word, I would feel very uncomfortable and I would be concerned about what other people think. And I know it shouldn't be important, but to be honest, to me, it could be really important. I'll sit down with anybody in AA and let them know what I think in terms of my spirituality. But I know there are times where I just have to, I'm not faking anything, but I'm keeping my thoughts or belief to myself. And maybe I have a lot of growth. Maybe I have to have a lot of experience with growth before I can do that. But today I do the best I can. I can, yeah, I can honestly say that whereas I strive for perfection, I've made progress. I'm a lot better than I used to be. And I know that, and I'll finish with this. I've done several 4 steps, and I've had several different sponsors. And when it's really important for me to be able to talk about that thing that's really disturbing me, I talk to Marty, I talk to my sponsor, I talk to a few people who are very close to me, and I have to let it go and I have to be honest about it. So that's where I am. Imperfectly perfect, perfectly imperfect. And yet, when it comes to admission of my powerless over alcohol and my life is unmanageable, I am 100% honest about that. And with that, I will pass.
Thanks, Claudia. With 3 seconds to spare. Good job. And then I wanted to just kind of sandwich this in here before I call on Marty. And this is taken from Bill W. And it was produced by the Cleveland Group, which is one of the original groups in AA. So that's the source of this. It says, Bill W. considered each step to be a spiritual principle in and of itself. However, particularly in the 12 and 12, he outlined the spiritual principles behind each step. Some of them seemed like common sense, but understand going into the exercise that reading these principles and actually practicing them in your day-to-day lives are two entirely different things, and that the latter requires vigilance and willingness. And depending on what anybody's read about Bill W. and his writings, he wrote much about vigilance and willingness, to be honest. Okay, so Marty, thank you for showing up today.
Thank you, Steve. And thanks for the opportunity to be of service. My name is Marty. I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 7th, 1990. And I don't say that to impress anybody, especially myself. I've just been doing this for a long time. Yeah, good start, Claudia. It's interesting. I was, doing a little bit of looking around at this before the meeting, and I was looking at the four absolutes that the core principles of the program that came from the Oxford group, I guess, but the absolute honesty being the first one. And anything that's absolute seems to me out of reach for me. But I had to look back, and I too thought I was this honest person. Yeah, I had a little drinking problem, but I was fundamentally honest. And then you told me when I came in here, you said, more shall be revealed. More shall be revealed. And boy, was it. The fact that my idea of honesty and the cash register honest was probably one of the few places I was actually honest. And when I was able to look back, the fog that I had created and forgetting all the dishonest things I'd done, and through the process of the steps, especially the fourth and fifth, and working this out and talking with another human being, I was able to see that and a lot of these things, and over the years, things have popped up in my memory, that I completely forgotten about. But I did look up something, and I thought it was interesting, this about honesty and practice. And I first thought about well, first of all, just to kind of qualify when I walked back through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that was after I'd been sober 30 days. I was introduced to AA by a friend, and but I found myself in a situation where I had absolutely no mental defense against the first drink. And I picked up a drink and drank for 2.5 months, researching about them, which I found. And fortunately, it only took me 2.5 months. But I walked back through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, much like Claudia had mentioned, and that I was done. And I knew I was utterly powerless over alcohol, that when I drank, I had no idea what was going to happen. And I was done. But I was to learn a lot about rigorous honesty and absolute honesty in this process. And one of the things that, as I was thinking about this for today, was how dishonest I was in relationships, and why I had the absolute inability to form a loving relationship with another human being. And I just don't mean a partner, I mean anyone, a friend or a coworker or whatever. That I was just walking around, with these ideas in my head that I didn't want to share with anybody else. And I guess I could be manipulative, or just selfish and self-centered. Not to leave it at that. And and then I learned, and I'm looking at these honesty in practice, and then it's being honest in your thoughts, speech, and actions. And I wasn't, I lived that Jekyll and Hyde lifestyle, and I could be honest, so I thought, during the day, and then at night, I drink the golden elixir and become Mr. Hyde, and then I would become dishonest again. So it was, And I can look back at that and see that I have been in a relationship now for 35 years. And one of the things that's truly successful, I think, to be successful in a relationship is honest communication. That is fundamental. And Claudia has honestly communicated with me many times on what I need to change. Just kidding. But you know, and then I get back to this. Do we you know, it's like I'm not cured. I'm not cured. I may be recovered, but I'm not cured of alcoholism. And part of my core problem was this lying to myself, you know. And that's the beauty of staying in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. I get to hear every time I'm in a meeting, I get to hear someone share something honestly about what's going on with them or how they found a solution to a problem. And I get to store that, you know, in my memory banks and use it in the future. But and then I'm reminded that when I'm honest, especially in a meeting, that opens the door for someone else, you know. And a lot of times I'll have fear of, you know, what the being judged or what someone's opinion might be of me. And but I know that's the ego. It's always the ego that gets in the way, and that that other people's opinions of me is none of my business. And but getting back to the honesty, I think that was probably with the fourth and fifth step, being honest about my past. And things still crop up, they still pop up, and I'm going, oh yeah. And I remember discussing with Claudia about I was talking about this was a teacher, a coach, and I went to a Catholic high school, and he kind of beat me up in the hallway once, and I carried a deep resentment towards him. And I was kind of physically small when I was younger. I grew slowly, and I had a deep resentment towards this guy. And I was talking about it. And this was years after I'd probably done my last real four-step, thorough four-step. And Claudia said, was he on your four-step? I go, no, absolutely not. This guy really harmed me, you know? I wanted to kill him. And I realized that, you know, suddenly I had to be honest with myself, that I had to face this. I had to use these spiritual principles and to be free of that poison that it was inside me, you know. One more time, had to be thoroughly honest. How I felt about that and what I was harboring, you know, and how unhealthy it is for me to live that way. And you tell me all the time, you know. I hear this stuff. It's like when I introduce myself at a meeting and I say I'm grateful to be alive and sober, and I say it by rote all the time. Am I truly, honestly grateful? I thought about that this morning. Am I truly, honestly grateful to be alive and sober? Sorry. Anyway, I guess that's enough out of me. I lost the picture now. There we are. Sorry. I had my phone silenced. Of course, it's somebody from AA out of state. Anyway, I think that's all I've got on that. I hope that you can get something out of that. So with that, I will pass.
Well, thanks, Marty. And you got it down to 14 seconds. So good job. And also as has been the habit of these YouTubes that we record over the last couple of years, we're real loose on crosstalk. Just to let everybody in on the how it's been in the past. And we have a new, oh no, we don't. We have a listener. Welcome. And so I wanted to throw this into, I heard an old time, long-term sobriety man in Seattle give a talk, and it was on rigorous honesty. And so the question, what is rigorous honesty and how do I practice it in all my affairs? And that was asked of him. And he said, kind of smiling, he said, rigorous honesty is you can appreciate the concept that you're either honest or you aren't. And he said, furthermore, which I had never thought of this before, he said, honesty, there's always kindness in honesty. There's no brutality, because we would hear sometimes, well, to be brutally honest. And he picked that apart. He said, there's no brutality in honesty. There's always kindness in it. And I wasn't the only one, but I'm kind of looking like with what? Sometimes honesty is just brutal. And he said, he said, that's never, ever true. And then he also said, which was very helpful to me, if you think that's true, you can, what did Bill say in here? You can be vigilant and willing to research what actual honesty is more and see if your mind changes. But it just, that rigorous honesty that they talk about and how it works, I never thought of it before. It's something's either, I'm honest or I'm not. Could it be as simple as that? Anyway, okay, enough of that. So, Nancy, did you have anything you wanted to share? Thank you for being here.
Oh, yes. Thank you for being here. I'm Nancy and I'm an alcoholic. And I've really enjoyed the discussion so far. As you can see, honesty is a little bit, hard to nail down, right? And I don't know if that's because we have varying, well, in this situation or that situation. And I was one also that I thought, well, I am honest. Like I would never leave, let the clerk give me an extra $1 or a quarter. I would have the cash register honesty. And I kind of, I think I patted myself on the back for that, without, and then coming to AA and the talking about honesty. And I was told early on and for years in between that without self-honesty, being honest with myself, I didn't have a great chance of happiness in sobriety, even if I managed not to drink. That self-honesty, that idea of it was revealed to me quite slowly, because I thought I knew what I needed in my life and kind of, I feel like, skated along, or I had a sponsor once, she said, how are you doing? And I said, I'm doing pretty good. I'm just, coasting along. And she said, well, you know what they say about coasting, right? And I said, what? And they said, if you're coasting, you're going downhill. And I was like, so that kind of woke me up to another aspect of like, how am I doing? What am I thinking? And Stephen, you mentioned something about, I don't know if it was the man that wrote the article that you've opened up with about what are the facts. And, the big book in the first 164 pages, the word fact comes up quite a few times in there. And one of them they call the central fact, is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. And if that's a fact, then where am I, in alignment with that fact? And if I'm not, then because I do believe it's not just, it's not me here running the show, no matter how many times I think I might be or try to be, that we have a way. And it's based for me most of the time on how do I feel? What am I thinking? What am, something from the outside can definitely trigger me and give me, well, pause for lack of a more descriptive term, to where something is that I don't like. But I've learned through to ask myself, like they talk about with spiritual terms, to ask myself, what did that mean to me? And that to me is where honesty has served to help me grow. If I can be honest, and even to just sit with it and, to say, like, what did that mean to me? Even the fears in my inventory, what did that fear of authority, what did that mean to me? Well, that meant that I'm afraid of having somebody else run my life. I'm afraid of God. I'm afraid of a power greater than myself, to honestly search. I mean, that's what the program asks us to do. And the interesting thing is that it isn't hard to do. And especially once I see what seemingly blocks me from that, is only fear that I'm going to lose something that I already have, or I'm not going to get something that I believe I need. And so if I can be honest about what that is, it's much easier to surrender that, to surrender that to my higher power, to desire to grow through that. And I believe, because it's been my experience, that does happen. Years ago, my sister's daughter, she's in her 40s now, but this is when she was in her 20s and was in college. And she was dating two boys in college. And my sister, who's not in AA, but sometimes just pearls drop out of her mouth, that at least that I think are just meant for me. But she said, she heard that her daughter told her that this was going on, and she just went, oh, Mary Lou, she said, that's not living in the light. And I was just like, oh, that is such a good phrase, that because living in the light that means there's transparency here, right? That if anyone saw what I was doing, they wouldn't, it would be clear, and I would be okay. So living in the light, to me, that means living in self-honesty, and being willing to be honest at some point in whatever day or hour that it is. And sometimes it is not. And then with that, there comes that little anxiety, that pull of conscience, which isn't meant to condemn me, but to help me bring it to the surface so it could be let go. And I don't know, it does start with honesty. And at first, that admission, right, that you talked about, Claudia, this pure admission, like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then it's almost like done, done for you, which is part of the miraculous turnaround from the way I think things are going to go. I can't do this, and now I'll be dying to I can't do this, and then a new life is the opportunity for a new life. So thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Nancy. And reminded me from an old sponsor is how simple things can become. I remember asking, which I'm sure a lot of people have asked or thought, how do you quit drinking for the rest of your life? I mean, don't try and trick me. I know what AA is about. And I remember that the man smiling at me and very gently said, I don't know how you quit drinking for the rest of your life, but I know how to not drink today. And it just kind of clicked that my concept of not drinking, what was an impossible thing for me to I just couldn't get it in my head for my whole life. And along that vein, I was told once or heard once that to be honest, there's a requirement, I'm not saying there might be more than one, but there's a requirement of honesty, and the requirement is you care about the truth. And I'm going, oh wow, I never heard that before. So although I have heard with these spiritual principles that we're just starting to study, there's no contradiction with any of them. That they all enhance each other. And so why would it be surprising to me to hear that honesty requires that I care about the truth? And I noticed with me, at any rate, that makes it harder to be dishonest or put a degree on honesty that doesn't really exist. Okay, anyway, Cindy, thank you for your loyalty here.
Thanks, Steve. I'm Cindy. I'm an alcoholic. And this has been really good for me because just thinking about honesty, because that first that line and how it works, it says there are such unfortunates who can't be rigorously honest. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's me. I'm one of the unfortunates. That honesty, is like a double-edged sword. That like part of me thought, well, I'm honest, but yeah, a lot of times I was like a closet dishonest person. And thinking about honesty made me realize that when I asked for help, when I said I need help, I can't do this, I need help, that was probably the most honest thing I had ever said. That I finally gave up, that that everything I was trying to hold up was I couldn't do it. And who would have thought that just that one thought would clear away so much of give me some space in my brain to look at other things. And then it just, the honesty to look at my thoughts about a higher power. And did I really believe that, or was I just like saying things for the people that were outside of me? And doing a fourth step and fifth step, telling somebody about all the things that I had done, that I was afraid of. And so it's kind of shot through everything. And do I do dishonest things? Of course I do. How many times have where my actions and what I think I should be doing, that, or how I see, either how I see myself or how the person I want to be is different from my actions. And, you know, passing by just an easy one is, have you ever stood and waited at a crosswalk for the traffic to stop? And if the first car goes by, everybody else goes by. And no, they don't stop. And I've been in that line of cars that don't stop. But I would say, well, I always stop for pedestrians. Well, actually, I really don't always stop for pedestrians or somebody who needs help, somebody lying on the side of the sidewalk. Do I, or, the people outside Fred Meyer, do I drive by? Should I stop? Should I ask if they need help? So my actions and what I think an honest person, what I think is honest, still needs work. And I guess that's where I need help. I need help. I just remember I was the queen of I'm fine. And my daughter would say, Mom, your words and your actions don't match. It's like, oh man, when I think of that, that's where the honesty, I need help with honesty. That's it.
Thank you, Cindy. And I think you said something, I mean, all of it real important. We get to see willingness. If we want help, we're promised in our big book, it'll come. But if we want help, I know just from me looking at what we've been talking about today, it's really opened up my eyes. Thankfully, there's an invitation in the book that we practice these principles in all our affairs, because practice is what I need has been helpful. And are you able to join us, Lara? Oh, okay. So anything more from anybody? And Claudia and Marty, thank you so much for being here. And of course, I got a pitch for next month. We're on step 2, hope. And I can send you the flyer for that.
Steve?
Yeah.
My name's Claudia, alcoholic. I just wanted to say something. Conditional honesty. I had a situation in the last year where someone has been my sponsor for a number of years. And in this contentious political environment, I had gone on to a social media page, and I wasn't looking for anything. But I found that she had posted things I thought were very upsetting to me, not true, and they were not consistent with the way I imagined. No, I had perceived her to be. They are her strongly held beliefs, and they are inconsistent with mine. Now, I like her very much. I've gotten to know her very well. But I had to make a decision to get a different sponsor, not one who necessarily believed the same political perspectives that I do, but it was a decision I needed to make, and it was one I made, and I found somebody local. And on what I could have said, honest, was to this woman that I love you and I want you as a friend, but I don't agree with something that you did or posted. But I didn't. And I told her that I appreciated what she had to help me with over the years, but I needed someone local. And there was a truth in that, but there was and I look at that as something that was talking about, to me, conditional truth. The real truth is I know the difference. I also know my truth, and what's important to me is I wanted to maintain a relationship with this person. I go on some Zoom meetings with it, and it wasn't necessary to have a political discussion or argument or but I handled it in a way that was necessary for me. And I think that I can seek honesty in my relationships with other people, but there are times, like I said, where to say that thing for me and that's going on in my head, the way I feel about something may not be necessarily the right thing to do at that moment. Like I said, there was a nugget of truth in what I said to her, but for me, it was more important just to keep that relationship comfortable rather than addressing what was the real reason. So I'm telling a truth on something that I haven't really told to anybody. And of course, a bunch of people are going to watch this on YouTube, maybe, but there are times when that's more important to me than having to address an exact truth. That's it.
Well, thanks, Claudia. And I got a little bit of a similar story. There is a man I greatly respected, and he's a very, very famous TV shows and stuff like that. Of course, he wouldn't know me from Adam, but I really, really respected him. And about a year ago, I heard him in an interview with a political party I didn't agree with at all. And he was like buying into it 100%. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I could be so wrong about this guy that I respected so much. And then I was disgusted with him. Like, it just seemed he was, in my eyes, he was living a complete contradiction of what he stood for the years that I'd listened to him and his shows and stuff. And finally, I brought it up. I brought it up to somebody. They said, Stephen, it's not that he is doing whatever he's doing or believing whatever he's believing. Let's look at the real problem. You're upset. There's something the matter with the way you're thinking. And I just thought, oh my God. I wanted to tell this story about how this guy betrayed everything he's ever said in my mind. And I get down to if I'm upset, there's something the matter with me. And it's not about agreeing or disagreeing with the other person. And you know what? I did do it, but for a long time, I didn't want to put any effort into the way I was thinking. And I can say that with great honesty. Laziness or whatever, I just didn't want to until I did. And so I got to have a little experience with the consequences of being honest. Anybody?
I want to say one thing.
Lara, welcome.
My name's Lara. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you. I've been listening to this conversation and it's really great. I appreciate all the input. Honesty has come to me slowly over time. It's part of the spiritual awakening that happens slowly over time. Seems to be directly connected to my level of honesty about myself and my character defects and my relationship with God and whatever. But what I realize is, being honest is something that I am, doesn't come supernaturally. one of my friends at my local AA hall calls me liar instead of Lara. So, I mean, it's I'm not the only, anyway, it's kind of obvious how hard of a time I have being honest. But what I realized about honesty is that I am not honest unless there's something in it for me, typically. And so I'm not honest if it doesn't feel good to me, or if I'm gonna experience harsh consequences. One way or another. I'm not honest when it's going to make me look bad. Now, over the course of time of staying sober, my idea of what it's going to do for me has broadened. So I know that I can admit my character defects and experience some level of uncomfortableness, some level of truth, some level of reality, but I know ultimately that is going to set me free. So even, like, I don't know that I would admit my character defects. And it says, who cares to admit complete defeat and admit their character defects? Practically no one, unless it's going to save my life. Right. And that's what the level of honesty that is happening in this program, especially about step 1. I mean, I'm forced to get honest. I don't just walk into AA. Oh, I guess I admit I'm an alcoholic, because I know it's I'm bludgeoned, right? I'm bludgeoned into being honest, typically. And that doesn't just have to do with alcohol and drugs, or my addiction or alcoholism. It has to do with all my character defects. I'm bludgeoned into letting them go, typically. Now, the longer I stay sober and the older I get, the more readily I am, and perhaps just the more experience I have with my character defects and the uncomfortable consequences of them. I don't, it's not comfortable for me to live in a whole bunch of denial or well, I don't really know if I'm living in denial, so that's not accurate. But it's not comfortable for me to walk around being like cash register honesty, for instance. I can't steal anything anymore. I mean, it's terribly uncomfortable, right? I have consequences for my dishonesty. If I'm not honest with my husband about something, it's very uncomfortable. And then I have to be honest, which is also uncomfortable, but ultimately it sets me free. So I was just thinking about the correlation and relationship between honesty and self-preservation, and how that has changed over my sobriety. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lara. And again, thank everybody for being here. And I hope to see everybody next month, where we're going to be talking about hope. So what we end with, Nancy, will you take us out?
Do you want the responsibility statement?
Whatever. Honestly, whatever you want.
Oh, well, honestly, I think I'd like the serenity prayer. So, God,
God, grant
grant
Grant me
me the serenity
to
to
accept the things I cannot change, the
the
courage
courage to
the things
change
I
the
can,
things I can,
and the wisdom
and the
to
willingness
know.
to know the difference. Honestly,
Okay.
there she is.
See you next month.
And it's what day is it? Is it the 3rd?